What if American Psycho isn't about murder, but about being invisible in a crowd? Think about it. We live in a world of people, feeds, likes, and notifications. Everyone seems connected, yet so many of us feel invisible. Patrick Bateman, a man everyone knows but no one truly sees, might not be about murder at all. Maybe he reflects the loneliness we hide behind our masks. By the end of this video, you'll see how his world isn't far from ours, and why disappearing in plain sight has never been easier. American Psycho, 1991, by Bret, Easton, Ellis, is one of those books that looks flashy on the surface, but is actually deeply unsettling once you sink into it. It's set in late 1980s Manhattan and told through the voice of Patrick Bateman, a good-looking, Harvard-educated investment banker who seems to have everything figured out. Perfect suits, expensive restaurants, the right connections, the full American dream package. But underneath all that polish, something is seriously wrong. By day, Bateman is obsessed with status, designer brands, reservations at exclusive places, comparing himself non-stop to the people around him. By night, his mind drifts into violent, disturbing fantasies of torture and murder. And the scary part? You're never fully sure how much of it actually happens. The story is told in first-person, present tense. So you're trapped inside Bateman's head, watching reality blur with delusion. Even the violence feels uncertain, which makes his identity feel fractured, like he doesn't fully exist as a real person at all. Ellis has said the novel came from his own feelings of isolation and alienation, and you really feel that. Bateman isn't just a serial killer figure. He's a symbol of someone who's fallen into a consumerist void. He's wealthy, narcissistic, vain, and completely hollow. He doesn't connect with people as people. He sees them as reflections of status, competition, or background noise. The book is brutally funny about this. Bateman constantly lists brand names and products, almost like he's reciting prayers. Suits, watches, skincare routines, it's endless. And it shows how everyone in this world builds their identity through what they buy. There's this famous scene where Bateman and his co-workers compare business cards, and he nearly falls apart because someone else's card has better paper and font. It sounds ridiculous, but for Bateman, it's devastating. Because without those external markers of success, he feels like he doesn't exist at all. That's really the core of the book. Bateman is empty inside. He has almost no genuine human relationships. Everyone around him looks the same, acts the same, and even gets mistaken for one another, including Bateman himself. They confuse each other constantly, which makes the world feel dehumanized and interchangeable. He's surrounded by people, yet completely alone. So beneath all the shock and controversy, American Psycho is really about alienation. What happens when identity is built entirely on surfaces, brands, and appearances? Patrick Bateman isn't just lost in society, he's dissolved into it. A man in a crowd who can't tell himself, or anyone else, apart. Ellis, and a lot of critics, basically agree on one thing. Patrick Bateman isn't just broken as an individual. He's a symptom of something much bigger. American Psycho is really a warning about a cultural emptiness, a kind of spiritual void that opened up in 1980s America. The American dream stopped being about meaning or fulfillment and turned into this endless chase for money, fame, and looking perfect from the outside. What makes Bateman tragic is that he knows something is wrong. He openly admits he hates his banking job, but he keeps doing it anyway, not because he cares about finance, but because he wants to fit in. He wants approval. He wants to be seen. Even though everything about his life feels fake, he's terrified of stepping outside the image. That feeling is painfully modern. It's not that different from staying in a job you hate, or curating an online persona you don't recognize anymore just because it gets likes, status, or validation. Bateman despises most people around him. He treats women as objects, trophies, or accessories, almost like products to be consumed, except maybe Jean, his secretary, who represents something gentler and more human that he can't quite destroy. But in this world, real connection barely exists. People constantly mistake each other for someone else, confuse names, faces, even identities. Everyone blends together. It's like walking into a room full of identical LinkedIn profiles or Instagram clones. Same ambitions, same language, same empty smiles. The society is so hyper-consumerist and narcissistic that relationships become shallow and interchangeable. And despite all the excess, money, luxury, power, Bateman feels absolutely numb. Critics often talk about Bateman's lack of inwardness, and that's where the novel becomes genuinely disturbing. His voice is flat, emotionless, almost robotic. At one point, he says he touches his chest, expecting to feel his heart beating, but there's nothing there, not even a pulse. It's such a simple line, but it hits hard. He doesn't just feel heartless. He experiences himself as literally empty inside. That emptiness explains why the violence feels so cold. Bateman commits horrific acts with the same detached tone he uses to review bottled water or skincare products. Even cannibalism is treated like a boring routine. The violence doesn't shock because it's graphic. It shocks because it's meaningless. It's just another activity in a life with no emotional depth. And that's really the scariest part of American Psycho. The horror isn't only the murders, it's the absence of an inner life. Bateman isn't driven by passion, rage, or even pleasure. He's driven by nothing, a hollow center. In today's world, that hits uncomfortably close. When identity becomes branding, when empathy is replaced by performance, when life turns into constant self-curation, what's left underneath? Ellis seems to suggest that if a culture keeps rewarding surfaces over substance, it eventually produces people who are all surface and nothing underneath. Those graphic, uncomfortable scenes aren't just there to shock you, they're satirizing us. Ellis traps us inside Patrick Bateman's head for 400 pages and makes us live inside what's basically a void wearing an Armani suit. The longer you stay there, the more disturbing it becomes. What's really creepy is how calm Bateman is about everything. He talks about cooking and eating people in the same flat, detached tone he uses to recommend skincare or review designer products. You almost laugh, not because it's funny, but because the emotional disconnect is so extreme, it turns absurd. That deadpan voice feels very modern. It mirrors how we scroll past violence or tragedy online with the same numb attention we give to influencer routines. Everything starts to feel flattened. And American Psycho isn't just about consumerism. It also takes aim at toxic masculinity, identity, and the blurred line between reality and fantasy. Ellis mocks the male-dominated Wall Street culture where men brag about being highly motivated and irreplaceable. It's a warped American dream built on ego and competition. And inside that system, Bateman doesn't become a success story. He becomes a monster, as if the culture finally reveals what it's been producing all along. Bateman's endless lists of brands aren't just quirks, they're symptoms. He defines himself entirely through commodities. So when he says, "I simply am not there," it's literal. Strip away the labels, and there's nothing underneath. That feels uncomfortably familiar in a world of bios, aesthetics, and algorithms. The novel's structure makes it even worse. Bateman is an unreliable narrator. Everything happens in the present tense, and there's no escape from his perspective. Reality slips, empathy fades, and any stable sense of self dissolves. When the book first came out, the backlash was intense. The violence outraged readers, and Ellis was accused of misogyny and exploitation. But defenders like Irvin Welsh argued that critics missed the point. Ellis wasn't glorifying Bateman. He was exposing the culture that made him possible. As Welsh put it, the novel is a hyper-real satirical mirror, reflecting a world drained of empathy where monsters hide in plain sight. That's why American Psycho still hits today. It's disturbing on purpose. The shock forces you to notice how empty modern life can become when image replaces meaning, and when there's no one left behind the mask. What's wild is how American Psycho still feels painfully relevant. Bateman's world doesn't feel like a leftover from the 1980s. It feels like a prototype of the one we're living in now. Think about Instagram, curated feeds, flawless routines, luxury aesthetics. Everyone is performing a polished version of themselves. Bateman was doing the same thing, just with business cards and Armani suits instead of filters and reels. His obsession with surface basically anticipates influencer culture. His whole life is personal branding, what he wears, where he eats, who he's seen with, and when that image cracks, he panics. That's not far from what happens today when a post flops or online validation drops. The anxiety is the same, it's just moved to a digital stage. The novel also captures something everywhere now: hollow authenticity. People who look confident and fulfilled online but feel anxious or empty in real life. Bateman is the extreme version, constantly social, constantly winning, yet completely alone. More connection doesn't mean less isolation. It just means isolation with better presentation. And the obsession with excess hasn't gone anywhere. The 1980s fixation on luxury brands looks a lot like today's logo culture, designer drops, and billionaire flexing. Bateman breaking down over a business card isn't that different from obsessing over follower counts or status symbols. The details change, but the insecurity doesn't. That's why American Psycho still hits. Not because we relate to Bateman's violence, but because we recognize the world that made him possible. And that's why Patrick Bateman isn't just a story about a serial killer. He's a reflection of the loneliness, emptiness, and performance so many of us hide behind every day. If this made you stop and think about the world around you or your own life, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives like this. And I want to know, have you ever felt invisible in a crowd? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and remember, the world sees the mask, but not always what's underneath.